Hello and welcome back to First Act, a podcast from Kochie's Business Builders. I'm Cess Busby.
I'm Adam Bubb.
And First Act is a podcast where we talk to successful entrepreneurs and ideas people about the rough and ready road to success.
Yeah, we certainly do, Cess. So what I love about making this podcast with you is not just your wonderful presence, because it is very wonderful, but I love it how honest everyone has been about their failures as well as their successes. And I know the word failure doesn't even really capture it because you always learn something when things go pear-shaped. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get into today's first act. Who have we got?
Today's guest is a man who wants to strengthen your conversation muscle. Yeah, he's created a global community of more than 50,000 people, all over the idea that having a cuppa and a chat could change your life. But it hasn't been an easy ride for Luke Cook, founder and host of Cuppa.tv, because when COVID hit, his first business, Fun Locker, went down with it. And out of that difficult time came something really quite magical, something that has now turned into Cuppa TV, an online, live and on-demand video streaming and interactive platform that Luke says is like Netflix, but where binge watching actually improves your work or life. Welcome, Luke.
I reckon you both should do my intro all the time. That was amazing. Loved it.
Well, yeah, you know, I happily will because you're a great guy. And look, I think for anyone listening, we are going to be calling Luke Cookie because that is he's not the Cookie Monster, but he's well known as Cookie around our traps. So Cookie, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Now, I know you start your cuppa sessions with a cuppa, but we always start our first act with the first act icebreaker. So just to get things moving, your icebreaker for today is, what is the most vivid food memory that you've replayed over and over in your head? It could be an incredible meal or a moment that just gives you the warm and fuzzies. First thing that comes to your head.
Are you serious, the first thing?
Yeah.
A kebab.
And
the reason why, can I just say, is it used to be a kebab at the end of the night after I've had a very good night with my friends, and it always used to just top it off for me, but it used to always be after a good night with friends and that type of stuff. I don't know why that just popped up then. Maybe I'm craving.
Good memory. Now, look, let's get into your first act. You talk for a living. Did you always have the gift of the gab?
Yeah. I was always that kid at school that used to, stand up on stage, lead the assemblies and all that type of stuff. And my first ever job was Lightning Luke on the streets of Sydney, handing out free cans of Coke and doing live crosses on the radio. So I feel the journey to get to Cuppa is sort of like it's an evolution to get back to what I love.
The gift of the gab, was it a help or a hindrance? Like you mentioned, you were the one getting up on stage, but were you also the one in the back corner jabbering away to their mates that the teachers would want to throw a book at?
There was a few of those instances on the report card, yes. There was a few standing outside, Luke. You're being too noisy, yes. But it's 100% why I'm where I'm at today. It's the ability to be able to connect and communicate in an authentic way has always been, instilled in me from my mum, always. And so, it was quite naturally easy. I think the problem now is that I'm MC at most weddings more than I am a guest.
So you mentioned, you're MCing a lot, but you've also been Lightning Luke, as you mentioned. What did you learn from being Lightning Luke?
When I got my first job in radio, it was like a foot in the door. I felt like I was already connected to the industry. It was such a fun industry when I first started back in 2000. I remember I got the job and I always thought, this is my chance to kick that door open and do what I can to be as successful as I can. I remember getting the job and I didn't know how to drive a manual car, and the car was manual. So I had to learn within a week before starting that job how to drive a manual car, and I will just say that I stalled it as I drove out the driveway the first time. But, the first cross, it was nerve-wracking. But the real joy came when people started to arrive and the excitement on their face and just wanting to be there it was just such a driving factor for me way back then. I still remember it as being probably one of the best times in my career, because it was just good to be out and talking to people and making people happy.
What was the Lightning moniker for? Were you like there in a flash? What?
Did you have some amazing outfit?
I had bleached blonde hair at the time, as an FYI. That was one of those moments when Mum said you look ridiculous, but I thought I looked amazing. But anyway, it was that was one part of it. They wanted something to rhyme together, because they always do in radio. I never strike twice. I was always at one location for that one time and never strike twice in that location.
Yeah. So you mentioned your mum, and you also mentioned her just earlier in the convo about how she kind of influenced your conversation style in a way. Like, is she the reason that you're sociable? And what did you learn from her and your dad about the lessons that you've taken into your work now?
Yeah, so I suppose, when I was 4, my dad passed away from a heart attack. So my mum was a single mum for pretty much all her life. But, when you grow up with a single mum who just lives and breathes who you are and wants you to be, who you are as well, you naturally just replicate who your parent is. And Mum was always a social person. Like, she still is. She claims that. Well, no, she does. She's got bad arthritis, but you give her a dance floor and she's right in the middle of it. But yeah, I think for me it was, just learning from Mum and giving people the time to listen and talk to them was just such great grounding for me. Looking up to her during those early stages of my life when Dad passed.
Are you the only child, or do you have siblings?
I was an only child as well. Most only children, they say, it's a bit weird, only children, but no. Mum always got me into, different activities. Mum used to take me to the football games that I used to love. She really evolved her life around things that I enjoyed and loved. And, whilst I was an only child, I was never alone, if that makes sense. I was always out and about with friends and socialising and from a very young age.
Well, shout out to your mum, because sounds like she went above and beyond making sure that you got out to everything and you got a very sociable upbringing.
Yeah, totally. Big ups for Mum. Big ups.
Now, you mentioned the Lightning Luke thing and getting your foot in the door in radio, but you actually studied marketing and PR at uni?
Yeah, it was a diploma, and I suppose when you get out of school, you try and work out, well, what's next? And I knew I didn't really want to go into university because I really wasn't sure. So PR and marketing was definitely, something that interested me. It's another way to be able to communicate and get messages out there. And so I did a 1-year course there, did a lot of training programs internally at organisations as well during that time. But yeah, coming out of that, it definitely helped me get the job at the radio station as well, that background.
And that was the Australian Radio Network that you were working for. But I know, just from stalking your LinkedIn maybe, that you worked for Essex FM in the UK. Any wild stories from this part of your first act?
Oh, I love how you go back to those moments. I was one of those travellers that went overseas with a mate. By the time I went overseas, I was already Sydney promotions director of 2WS, the radio station, at the age of 24. And I just thought at that time it was probably good to just get a bit of life experience. So I went overseas and, my friends ended up travelling everywhere. And I sort of, again, just started thinking about, well, how can I further my career over here? So I found a job at Essex FM, and you'll never believe what my first ever job was. I had to pull together Essex Babes competition. But back in the day, you could probably do that. But, my job was to organise Essex Babes competition. It wasn't my idea, by the way, but it was my job to coordinate.
Sounds like a few geezers in a room coming up with that one.
It was a lot of tanned ladies, and there was probably, yes, you're right, Seth. There was probably there was a lot of old geezers in high-profile roles up there that probably made that one happen.
I remember when we spoke to Matty J right at the very beginning of this second season, he was talking about Also the massive differences between the marketing budgets over there to what they are here. Did you come across that as well?
Yeah, there was a big difference in the way that they executed over there. It did definitely feel like they were ahead of the time than what Australia was. So I always knew that as well from a grounding perspective, that if I had that on the CV, I could always come back to Australia and find another job.
So then you come back to Australia. At what point did you realise that you wanted to do something other than the marketing and PR, and when did you decide you wanted to go into business for yourself?
Yeah, so the journey when I came back, I came back to Australian Radio Network again, and I ended up becoming network promotions manager of all the radio stations across the country. That was when I was 27. And then I was always told, Cookie, you'd be great at sales. You'd be great at sales, Cookie. You'd make more money. You'd be great at sales. And I thought, you know what? I'm hearing everything that people are saying, so why not give it a go? And I went to a company called MCM Media, who used to produce a lot of radio shows like Take 40 Australia, My Generation. They used to do Live at the Chapel and music series. They even launched Vivo in Australia as well. So it was such a great organisation. And again, I was just always progressed through the ranks. And next thing I knew, I was sales director of a media organisation, and I sort of lost my soul in all aspects. And it's because, you know, as an employee, a lot of the times you get progressed so quickly that you don't even know who your true self is. And all of a sudden I looked at my life and it became too much about money instead of happiness. And whilst I was driving a beautiful Audi and all the rest of it, and I just bought my home, an apartment in Five Dock, and I just went, you know what, I think this is not me. I lost a lot of who I was, my truth. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is helping people understand their truth and who they are and why they're here. And my biggest mistake was I replicated my boss in style and who I was, and like trying to be like him. And I didn't create my own leadership style and my own truth about who I am and what I respect. And I reached burnout at that stage. And I remember a mate of mine, Hodgie, I called him up one day. He goes, mate, you're all over the shop. What are you doing? This is not you. I've never had a mate talk to me over the phone like he did before. I can't say it on here because there was a lot of swear words involved, but he pretty much served it to me straight away, going, this is not who you are, Cookie. I know who you are. Why are you doing this? And so I took 3 months off and I went on a journey, which I called back then Recharge to Take Charge. I had no job to go to. And I started thinking about, well, what intrinsically is me? And I think at the time I was still at that stage of burnout, and I made the decision and I started thinking about, well, how can I just make people happy? People love experiences. I've got great connections with talent and sporting clubs, codes, musicians. How can I create like the red balloon on steroids for the community and give people what they want in life? And that's where the journey of Funlocker came about. And I took the leap one day, and the reason why I took the leap is I started recording my journey by video in the car and posting it on LinkedIn. And once you do that, once you commit to a journey and you post it out in public, it's hard for you to go back, because then your credibility's on the line as well.
So what do you think made Funlocker successful? Because as you mentioned, you know, there was already Red Balloon pretty much taking up the lion's share of the experience marketplace when you joined, and they'd snaffled up things like Adrenaline, what
Experience
else?
Oz,
Yeah,
one of them, yeah.
like loads of micro brands within that brand. What was it about Funlocker that made it successful?
Yeah, well, the dream of Funlocker was to match experiences to people's interests. So it was in between a Red Balloon and like Tinder. And the way it would work is whenever you logged on, you'd say yes or no to new experiences, and we'd learn about what your interests are so we could serve you more experience in life that you care about. The methodology then carried into what companies would reward their staff with. So instead of rewarding them with a generic gift, why not reward them with the ability to stand on the field with their favourite footy team, or to get a one-on-one experience with a celebrity chef that they love? So it was personalised. That was our hope and dream. Would I say Funlocker was successful? I wouldn't say it was successful. I would say it was a real great learning experience for me in business. And I learned a lot through that process of what not to do. And I also learned if you're driven in it by your inner purpose, that you just don't let it go until the moment that you need to.
So we get to 2020, the big year, a big year for a lot of people, a terrible year for a lot of people. And that's basically the year when Funlocker basically crumbled overnight. And you wrote an incredible article for us on Koshy's Business Builders about this. One of the most powerful lines was when you wrote, I set myself on a guilt trip asking how could I put my young family in this situation at the age of 39. What was that like?
Mate, when I launched Funlocker, I was one of these founders that invested everything into it. I believed so much in what I wanted to do in life and what I wanted to do in business. And I ended up selling my apartment and we lived off that for a couple of years, but I used some of that equity that I had achieved to actually build the Funlocker app. And we were so close in a lot of areas to being snapped up by companies like Woolworths Rewards, who wanted us to help fuel their experiences into their rewards platform. So there was all these things that were bubbling away and a lot of great conversations were happening. And then when COVID hit, it just wiped us clean. And because I was self-funded, I didn't have anything left. When COVID hit, those first 4 weeks when I started seeing bookings being pulled from underneath us and the slate being wiped, I was on the ground a lot. And I'm very open with my emotions and the journey that you go through in life. And I'm not afraid to share my vulnerability. But yeah, that was a really hard time because I didn't even know how I was going to put food on the table. I was 39 years old and I just went, what have I done? I went on a massive guilt trip going, I put my family through everything in the journey of a startup, which other entrepreneurs would know, to now this point where I just didn't even know how I was going to survive.
I think it was a hard time for everybody, not to downplay your experience, but out of that, something else blossomed, didn't it? That's probably the idea for Cuppa. What you were going through was probably the kernel that made you think that you needed to start something where people could have conversations and share what they were feeling about this time.
Yeah, it was. I remember I was walking up to my local coffee shop to get my double shot latte, which is probably the one thing that gave me joy in the morning, besides my beautiful family and kids. But, it was at that moment where I was walking up to the coffee shop going, oh, how do I help other people? Because I knew that COVID was bad, but I knew that mental health challenges would be the primary thing that people would be, that is the most concern in the market at that time. And as I was walking back, I gave Jill Kovitz, who was my business partner then, and I gave her a call and I said, Jill, how do we just help people start their day with a dose of positivity and inspiration? And I said, you know what, let's just start a virtual cafe. I don't know how we're going to do it. I just said, let's just start an online thing where we interview, celebrities and experts and hear about their vulnerabilities and stories, and let's help people just motivate. And, within a 3-week period, we had our first live session on April 20th with Gus Wallen from Gotcha for Life and a TV and radio personality. And we spoke about mateship. We spoke about, being there for others, and the feedback from that first session was off the charts. We had like a couple of hundred people tune in, and we just knew that, this was good for us to do, not only for the community, but for me personally as well.
We'll talk a little bit more about how the evolution of Cuppa just after this short commercial break. We're back with Cookie, aka Luke Cook. When did you realise you could, that these conversations, there was legs to this business, that you could commercialise these conversations with thought leaders, experts, Olympians, and turn them into really valuable content that, that businesses and people, they can learn everything from about, productivity to goal setting to mental health in the workplace.
It just naturally came. And this is what I realized, like Fun Locker for me was always a sell. Cuppa was never a sell because what happened was people were attending and they were people from all different walks of life, from, EAs to senior leaders in business. And as soon as they saw what we were doing, and because we were doing it free of charge, like we did it free of charge for a whole year. But what came out of the back of it was when people attended, the companies would ring me up and say, Cookie, can you do this for our business? Can you do a session with Sean Hall on energy? Can you do a session on resilience with Kamal Sama? Or can you get Lane Beachley to come and do a talk on mindset? And so we started getting business that way initially, and it just flowed. Everything that we did just flowed. It was easy. It felt right. And that's where the business model started to evolve, was we started to realize that we could have a greater impact for businesses and the community at large. And then we started doing bespoke programs like a series called Spring Into You, where we help people navigate from fear to developing a life plan. And in that 6-week period, we had 40 businesses sign up and a total audience pool of over 10,000 people. It just naturally flowed.
Now, because obviously there's a bit of a gap there in time where you were running it as Cuppa of Life originally, and then it became Cuppa TV. There was a bit of a period there where you probably weren't making money from it. Was that a difficult time, or did you really stuck to your vision and you knew that there was something there, right?
It was making such a big change in my life and the lives of others that I just knew intrinsically that I had to keep on going. Yep, the money was a challenge there, but I had mates, I had family that supported us during that early stage. And again, it's your network and your community that really rally around you. It did start making money, and it was we only needed to feed my mouth and Jill's mouth at the time, and we were getting by. We were 100% getting by, but we were still getting momentum.
That's such a powerful thing, because I think so many founders who maybe listen to this podcast will go, you know what, like I had to really stick with my vision and not give up and have faith that where I was going was the right direction. The payoff is going to come at some point. But I know you mentioned Jill, and unfortunately you lost your business partner, Jill Kovitz, earlier this year, right before the launch of Cuppa TV. I can't imagine how difficult that has been for you, and how do you feel you've managed to carry her legacy, Cuppa?
It was a real surreal moment. Like leading up to it, 6 months before Jill's passing, we decided to go, well, how do we evolve Cuppa? We were sitting on about 20,000 minutes worth of content after interviewing 300 odd experts, personalities and storytellers, and we weren't doing anything with that content. And that's where the idea came along of Cuppa.tv, turning it into that binge watching for work and life and the Netflix sort of version. And we worked really hard, because once we had a new business model, or the business model that we knew we were going to take into the future, there was a lot of work involved. Like we had to get agreements signed by all the talent. We had to, build the brand, change the brand from Cuppa of Life to Cuppa. There was a lot of work involved, and Jill needed a break, and she went away on holidays, and unfortunately, the water got her, the surf got her, and she drowned. And when that happened, it rocked me completely. Like you can't imagine the mindset at that time. We're 3 weeks away from launch, and to have her pass, someone that had been on the rocky road journey with me, who believed in me more than any of the business that we were running, to lose that person who was your rock next to you was a really challenging time. But I just want to state that it made me realize why we do what we do. And it made me realize that, like when I send out the note to our Cuppa community about Jill's passing, the emails that I was getting back were just unbelievable. I've kept every one of them. And a couple of the emails actually said, Cookie, you were here for us for the last 2 years, or Cookie, you and Jill were here for us for the last 2 years. We're now here for you. And then you start to realize that A, the business is bigger than you as individuals. B, it's not often that you get the love as a brand like we do. We've saved a life ourselves during COVID when someone tuned in on their lowest day. And then, we've got a bigger job to do. So Jill's passing, whilst it hit me emotionally, I don't feel like she's gone. I feel like she's right next to me every single day.
You mentioned the community then. It's not often, as you say, that a brand does have that backing of a community like that. And you've done a really great job by developing this community. And you must have some kind of sense of pride about how you've managed to do that and how everyone is so engaged and there for each other.
I am. Like, we got an email one day that said, "Thank you for being a friend." Again, you don't get called that as a brand that often. And it's because people want connection. They want to be involved in something that has purpose, that has meaning, that they can learn from. I think, from my perspective, this is content for good. Too often we get caught in this vibe of just constant barrage of negativity that we need to step out of that. We need to, start focusing on things that add to our lives, that we can learn from and grow within and get out of our bubble. Because as a community, if we all do that, if we step outside of our comfort zone and with the willingness to learn, this place would be a lot better.
Do you think because Cuppa is such a purpose-driven business, that is really also essential to its success?
Yeah, 100%. I think if we came at it any other way, it wouldn't work. It's got to be authentic. Everything that we do with Cuppa has to be raw, has to be honest, has to be vulnerable, has to be authentic. Like I said, the talent and the experts that we get in, we want them to be the exact same that we are. Hopefully that encourages other people to grow and learn as they watch and tune in. And, we've got great plans ahead for the business around where we want to take it. And I've got dreams about where I want to take it as well. For us to be able to start there is awesome.
And the pandemic might have done terrible things for people's mental health and for their finances and everything else. Do you think, though, that Cuppa would be the success it was and is without the pandemic?
I think we have to evolve, right? And my headspace goes, we've built a really good virtual environment, but conversations don't start or end there, right? Conversations happen everywhere. So Cuppa as a brand needs to evolve with that. My focus is how do we get Cuppa into more places and spaces? And how do we help people tackle conversations, difficult conversations? How do we support them when they need to have a conversation with their son around their own mental health? What is the conversational strategy for people who are new parents and giving them the tools that they need to tackle it? Because I can't tell you how many times that I have had people and businesses come back to me to say that their employees have come up to them and said, "Thank you so much for that conversation with Sarah Wilson on anxiety, because I replayed that session with my daughter and we had a conversation about it." The challenge we have as a society, and I like what you said at the start there about a conversational muscle, is that our conversational muscle is weakening. You try and call a person now, out of 20 people that you try and call, no one wants to talk to you. They want to text. So, it's a really interesting stage where technology, for all its good, when do we start saying no to technology? And when do we start embracing connection and presence and being there for people and flexing our muscle more and learning? So, you're right, Cess. I think it needs to get away from just virtual. We need to be in where conversations are happening, whether it's physical, virtual, who knows, Web3. We want to be everywhere eventually.
That's so interesting. You've gone kind of the opposite. It's like the reverse model. You've gone you're going from virtual to real life.
I want my own Cuppa cafe. I want a physical cafe with a studio in the middle, and I want to be able to invite people down for conversations and let the experts be there. But, that's a dream for me. Yeah, you're right. I'd love to get it more into the physical environment for sure.
One of my favorite things that I've learned was you have Dr. Amantha Imber, who is a workplace behavioral psychologist. She's speaking about monotasking, which it sort of like sticks in my head every single day.
Adam loves a monotask. He puts his headphones on.
Cess knows. She knows from working with me that I'm like, excuse me, I'm monotasking. The idea that we need to get away, like you were saying about like the world that we're in is so much about instant hits. And I think watching that one when she talked about how it's always so celebrated if you can multitask, but how amazing, how much work you can get done when you consciously go, this is my monotasking time and I'm going to select that. That to me has been something I just keep on putting into my everyday vernacular. It's kind of like do not disturb mode. It's like I'm monotasking now.
So good.
Yeah.
So have you had a favourite tip or conversation during your time hosting Cuppa?
I get asked that question a fair bit. And
Oh, sorry.
no. But what I want to say straight away is my biggest growth has happened when I've had conversations with people that are different than me. I always found myself being a, high-flying media sales executive. I felt like I was in a helicopter looking over the land thinking, I know about Indigenous culture and connection. I know about disability. I know about transgender. But I never landed the helicopter long enough to get on the ground and have a conversation with someone that is different than me. I wish every leader would do the same.
Now, how you manage day to day, because you do wear so many hats in your business and it really spins on you. And if you're not at your best, it affects everything from, your content, how you're doing these interviews to marketing your business, just everything. How do you keep yourself in check? Because it must be hard if you're having a conversation with someone and you're talking about issues around mental health and vulnerability and all that kind of thing. And you might be extremely stressed at that moment in time as well.
Yeah, that physician heal thyself thing. How are you healing Cookie?
I was so good at it. I used to get up early every morning and go do a meditation and see the sunrise and start the day with me. I will state that has sort of fallen off the rails since having another kid. I've got 2 kids under the age of 4, and so it's been a little bit difficult to get that morning start. What I do though really well right now is I segment time in my day to be just me. So I'll take longer blocks, half an hour, twice a day, where I'll go for a walk. And I'll go down near the water and I'll just sit and just be. And then I always make sure that at 5 o'clock that I am with my family, and I stay with my family until the girls are in bed, and then I'll get back online and do some more work. But, for me, it's finding those pockets and those moments, and just connecting with people that you care about and that care about you. Like the phone calls that I make every single day to people and just having chats really does ground me. I want to get back to go seeing that sunrise and doing that meditation again, though. Like that to me was always the joy of every day, because you did something exactly for yourself that you love.
Gosh, isn't that the dream? I've chatted to some people, various entrepreneurs who say, oh, you know what, I jump in the ocean at Bondi every morning and I have my acai smoothie, then I get, and then they do all this, all the things that, basically by 7 or 8 a.m. I've been in bed all that time while they've been out doing 5 different things that make their lives and minds and souls better. But it's very relatable that it's actually really hard as much as you want to go, I want to put that time into meditation or I want to do it. I guess we have to create our own routines of, be Cookie or be yourself.
Well, it is. And I've got like my diary is like a color coding dream, right? I've got so many different things where I do take the time just for me, but I have to put it throughout my day and treat it like a meeting like this.
Well, Cookie, thank you so much for sharing your first act. We've loved chatting with you. Everybody, head to cuppa.tv to sign up for yourself or your team at work. If you've got people who you want to improve your team and your culture, it's a fantastic platform. I've learned so much from it. And of course, don't forget to give this podcast a 5-star review if you've enjoyed this chat. Thank you again, Cookie.
Thank you so much to both of you.
And thank you for listening, and join us next week for another fantastic first act conversation. Bye-bye.